Hi, and welcome to Awkward Conversations. I am Jodie Sweetin. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please make sure you stick around for the post chat with myself and licensed clinical social worker Amy McCarthy, as well as other guests. And we'll be discussing everything that you're going to see in these episodes.
Guys, breakfast is ready.
Okay.
Hey, babe. Hello.
You need any help?
Well, forks. And where are you hiding the napkins?
They are right there where they've been for a while.
Is that true? I knew that. Good morning, Cameron.
Morning, Dad.
Turn that off, sweetie. It's time to eat.
Hello, honey. Hi.
Your father said good morning to you, Rosie.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Dad.
Come on, Rosie. You know the rules. No phones at the table. Put it down.
What's going on? Your phone's been blowing up all morning.
Nothing?
Rosie.
It's not a big deal. Angela is grounded for 6 weeks, okay?
Angela stinks. What? She does. She wears way too much perfume. Makes my eyes hurt when she's in the car with us.
What did she do?
Did she kill somebody?
Really?
You're just gonna make a big deal out of this.
Spill it, Rosie.
Her mom found weed in her room.
Why would you keep weeds in her room?
Weed, not weeds. Marijuana, stupid.
Rosie.
Hey.
Sorry, Cam.
How much of the weed did Angela have?
A few joints.
Where'd she get it?
Her sister gave them to her when she was home from college.
Did you try it?
I knew you would do this.
Do what?
Attack me.
Nobody is attacking you. I'm just asking a question.
And you need to answer the question, Rosie.
No, Dad. I've never smoked weed. I've never tried any drugs.
We need you to be honest with us.
I haven't. I swear. Angela asked me if she wanted me to smoke with her, and I didn't. It smelled like skunk. And like the garage always smells when Uncle Curtis visits.
You're not hanging out with Angela anymore, okay?
That is so unfair.
Fair or not, we don't want you around drugs, and we don't want you around anyone who does drugs. You can glare all you want to, but you're not hanging out with Angela anymore.
I bet she wears all that perfume to hide that skunk smell.
You're both such hypocrites. Caffeine, that's a drug. Right, Dad? You drink coffee every day.
No. See, I have a job and I pay taxes, and when you're a grown-up, you can drink as much coffee as you want.
And wine, that's a drug, right? You drink wine every weekend?
Not every weekend.
Besides, these are both legal drugs.
So, weed is legal in this state. Why does it matter if Angela does it?
Because she is 15 years old. You can do it when you're 21.
And what about Uncle Curtis? I'm not stupid. I know he smokes weed. Are we never allowed to talk to him ever again either?
No, obviously not. Curtis is an adult. He uses it for medicinal purposes. He has bad back spasms.
So, when I'm 21, I can drink alcohol and smoke weed whenever I want to?
When you're a grown-up, you can make your own choices.
Can I ask a question? So there's really not a skunk living in our garage?
No. No skunk.
Wonder I never found it. Treat could have eaten.
Okay, I've got to go.
Make good decisions.
And no hanging out with Angela. Oh, and remind Mrs. Garcia that I'm picking you up today.
Hey, bye.
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 No.
You might have a few questions.
Hey, pal. So do you have any questions for us about, the stuff we were just talking about?
Nothing? No questions at all?
What would happen if I ate a whole tube of toothpaste?
Oh, okay.
It's a good question. You'd be very sick. All right, on that note, I'm late. Gotta go. Have a great day. Love you.
Love you.
Come on, Cam. We gotta make the bus.
And don't eat any toothpaste.
Love you.
Love you. Rosie forgot her backpack. I'm gonna have to take it to her at school.
Forgot my backpack.
Here you go. I love you.
Bye, Mom.
Bye.
That was brutal today. The whole weed conversation.
Wasn't that bad.
It's crazy. They're growing up so fast. I still love my idea of building this tower where I could lock them up until they're grown.
I know. You and your tower.
It would work.
I'm really proud of her for telling us about it. I mean, she didn't want to, but she did. We have a way better relationship with her than I had with my parents at that age.
Do you think she was being honest with us when she said she didn't try it?
I do. Now, I know firsthand that teenage girls can lie as well as they breathe, but I trust her. Plus, she knows better than to mess with drugs.
Thanks to you and your good genes. Oh, time I was her age, I had already smoked pot. By the time I was 16, I was buying weed on the rig.
I know, babe. I was so scared she was gonna ask us about it. I mean, you know I smoked weed like a freight train in college. And I even tried X once.
You think you'd be honest with her if she asked?
I don't know. I mean, I expect her to be honest with us, but I don't know if that truth would help or hurt her right now.
I feel you. Well, thank God for my brother drawing the fire away from us. I'm gonna have to tell him he can't smoke in the garage next time he's here.
Yeah, and you should probably stop smoking with him when he's here, too.
The things we do for our children. I'm scared, Mary.
I know. I am too. But we just keep doing the best we can.
It's the best we can do.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for episode 1 of Awkward Conversations. Welcome to the post chat. I am your host, Jodie Sweetin, along with Amy McCarthy, who is a licensed clinical social worker here and is going to be helping to guide us through all of these conversations, awkward and not. A huge thank you to the Elks DAP, which is the largest all-volunteer nationwide drug awareness program. And also a huge thanks to the DEA for their outreach program and for making this possible. Our guest now is Clare Kramer. You guys might know her from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, also from Bring It On. Clare, thank you so much for joining us today for hopefully a non-awkward conversation about some awkward conversations that we have to have with our kids. Now, I know you're a parent. How old are your kids?
My kids are, let's see, I had to think about that for a minute. 7, 9, 11, and 14. So this is like the perfect time for the discussion to happen.
Yes, 11 and 13 is like the ripe age. 6th and 8th grade, we're right in middle school. It's definitely a lot. Speaking of sort of that age and that middle school age, one of the things that they really talk about in episode 1 that kind of gets brought up is, the bad influence friend, the friend that has gotten caught smoking weed, this friend Angela, and the parents are like, that's it, no more, you're not hanging out with her. She is, persona non grata, basically. Like you don't get to talk to her anymore. And Amy, you may be able to really share some wisdom on this too. I haven't had to have those conversations with my kids yet, but I know at some point it'll come. I know my mom had to have it with me, where it's like, that friend is not. And my mom used to say, that friend doesn't bring out the best in you.
That's good. I'm gonna take your mom's mantra of that and definitely use it. I haven't so much had to deal with this issue of like drugs and the bad influence friend who's pushing like substance abuse on them, but I have had to have the conversation about healthy relationships and self-esteem and friends that try to build you up versus friends that the active part of their relationship is bringing the other person down, and that's kind of, the phase we're in. And that's going to very easily transition into the substance abuse phase.
Right. Mm-hmm. Amy, can we as parents and caregivers sort of dictate who our kids hang out with? Is it when we do that, does it make them more appealing?
Yeah.
What is your experience with that?
Yeah, this is one of those, again, really difficult parts about what's the right answer? And it's one of those things where it still feels like there's never exactly a right or perfect answer. But I think that, can you tell your kids not to hang out with people? And can you actually, have them avoid those people? You can. And also, though, what happens when you do? And so I think that's the question for parents to ask themselves is, if I create this separation, then what's the result of that separation? And is that going to actually ultimately help my case or hurt my cause here? And so I think my feedback or my advice to parents would be that, you don't want to vilify a friend necessarily either. Like when it comes to substance use, when it comes to mental health, there's such a stigma that already exists. And so avoiding kind of, words like your friend is a bad friend because, they're using substances, and instead, putting the focus on, what do you think that your friends may be getting out of that? Or like, why do you think your friend's using substances? Or, being able to talk more about like their own personal choices. And so, what would, again, empowering people with knowledge, empowering them about, their own health, and why would you or would you not make that choice? And my final kind of maybe piece of advice there would be that you may also be able to have a little bit more control over how your child hangs out with that friend or that person, so instead inviting them over to your home where you can supervise, a little bit more of the activity together. You're going to go with them to the movies, or they're going to go hang out and go get dinner together, and they're going to have an hour or two, but it's not all night that they're going to be out, with this person or whoever it may be.
And knowing your kids' friends, right, Claire? I mean, that's I like to be the house where all my kids' friends come, everybody kind of gathers, like I know what's going on.
Absolutely. I'm always like, hey, listen, we have a pool, we have a trampoline, we have the space. Come here. Bring your friends here.
Right. I also find that, when I am the parent that kind of has kids over to my house and, you find that they'll just sit around in the kitchen and start talking, and it opens up those doors of communication.
No, absolutely. And, it's interesting that you mentioned like sitting around in the kitchen because it's an analogy, but I have found the most open conversations I'm able to have with my kids are where we don't have to look at each other. So if I'm cooking and they can, because it takes away that sort of like sense of like, oh, this is a serious conversation.
Right? We're not making eye contact.
Where you're not having to look.
Like,
That's why also a good time for parents out there, I have found to talk to my kids is when I'm driving, because I'm looking forward, they're looking out the window. You can drop a piece of information and you can back off.
Exactly. It's those little moments that sort of lay the foundation for better conversations.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you have this experience, but one of the things, that happens at the table in this first scene is they are talking to the daughter, about her friend Angela. And immediately the daughter gets defensive and says, I knew you would attack me.
Triggering the response, the fight or flight nature.
Right.
It happens. I mean, that is like teenagers' number one go-to is like, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
You don't understand me, right?
Yes. And there's no way to avoid it. But I think for me, like when that happens and that reaction is there, it's like, hey, no, that's not actually what I meant. If you rewind and you just think about the way I said it and what I said, you're going to realize that, there's a totally different reason. It's not about judgment. It's not about this. It's about actually just trying to figure out what's best for you and what's best for the situation. You know?
And what a great opportunity to model that for them.
Yeah. You're not only mirroring the behavior you'd like them to, exhibit when they lose their patience, but you're connecting with them of like, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm human,
Exactly. And having those conversations. And, it was funny too, because there's a sort of a joke line in there about the friend and, the perfume to hide the smell or whatever. I know that that's probably a very obvious sign, but Amy, do you have like any things that parents should be looking out for?
Yeah, 100%. I think, things that parents maybe have even already heard, looking at changes in different ways. So has your child's, has there been, a change in their grades or their school performance? Are they hanging out with a different crowd of people all of a sudden? Is their mood kind of increasing or decreasing? And I think sometimes we think of associating substance use with mood decreases. All of a sudden they're irritable or angry. And that might be true. And at the same time, you may actually see a spike in their mood because they're getting some type of relief to, the stress or the anxiety or something that the substance may be kind of medicating. And so, looking at extremes in either of those directions is kind of maybe perhaps a red flag. I also think, are they avoiding eye contact? Are they avoiding communicating with you? I think it's important to name that some of these things are typical teenage behavior. And also,
I was gonna say, all of this sounds like typical teenage behavior too, which is hard to sort of decipher and pull apart.
Right. And so in like what's hormones versus what's kind of, substance use or risky behavior. Something that's perhaps a little less kind of teenage is, are you noticing an excess of cell phone cords? Are they asking you for like a new cell phone cord, like, once a week? That may be because they're forgetful again, or it might be because they're vaping and they're using a cut cell phone cord to use their vaping device or to get extra kind of juice, so to speak, out of it. Are you noticing oils or things in unlabeled containers or things like that? And so, I think those are other things to kind of be on the lookout for.
I'm curious, Amy, what your take is on what privacy a child should be granted and what is parents' grounds to, go in and look around and read some texts.
I mean, we saw this come up with the backpack, right? When the mom finds the backpack. And I know as parents and caregivers, we all have that moment where we're like, oh, do I open the backpack? Do I not? Is it a violation? But I'm the parent, how do we approach that? And is it a violation of trust,
Yeah. And there's a piece of it too, where as humans, we're kind of curious creatures too. So you're like nosy and like, I want to know. And so I think it's first important to remind folks that, again, this kind of stage of development lends itself to, individualization and to independence. And so, I think trying to find that healthy balance between, again, teaching your children how to, be responsible with their privacy, but also still giving them chances to kind of, try things on for size, so to speak, when they're kind of figuring things out. I also think that privacy is something that can be earned. And so it's something that when you're looking at either developmental milestones or their behavior, it's something that like, okay, so if I'm seeing that you're getting good grades, that, I have no concerns about substance use, you're coming home by like your curfew, or, you're doing your chores around the house, then you may be able to kind of get a little bit more of, a window of which you get privacy. And on the flip side of that, all of a sudden you're seeing, again, these changes we talked about, changes in grades, irritability, your child is, sleeping a lot more than they used to, or they're actually not sleeping a lot more than they used to. Then I think that you can be able to talk with your child. There's differences of opinion on this. I think it's actually really important to tell your child that you may be doing some room checks or cell phone checks or things like that. If you find something, then you're going to have to tell them that you looked in the room anyway, right? And so I think to be forthcoming and honest, again, is modeling and mirroring for them what you'd expect for them to do, vice versa, back to you or to others.
And I like that, Amy, about saying like, hey, I will periodically be doing room checks. Like, I just want you guys to know you're living in my house or our home. Right. And that's part of living here is I get to monitor right. what you're doing. So don't be surprised,
Right. There may be unreasonable search and seizure. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
And again, being able to really, increase or decrease that frequency, it's a reward, or it's again, like I'm able to acknowledge that I'm seeing you acting in responsible ways. And so now I'm not going to be doing that as often as if I had concerns or worries, more or less.
Now, sort of speaking in that same line, having open and honest conversations about your own youth, childhood, teenagehood, young adulthood, it can be awkward because it both humanizes you and says, look, I understand, I've done these things. But there's a fear of how honest should I be? And we see that come up in episode 1. Mom says, I used to smoke a lot of weed, in college. And I even did that, tried ecstasy once. And, is it okay to admit to your kids and have that conversation that you have done drugs, even recreationally?
Well, I think one thing that we know, and research has kind of showed us, is that young people who know more about their background and their history, the good, the bad, the ugly, actually tend to fare kind of better in life overall. And the reason for that is because they understand that there's a world beyond kind of their own world. And so they're connecting to that larger kind of like network or hub, so to speak, in the world. I think also, we kind of joke about like, back in the day, you're so much older, like you don't get it. And there is a truth to that we don't understand what it's like to be a kid these days. And so maybe almost run with that and roll with the punches. Like, you're right. Like, I am old and things were different. And so I think it is appropriate to share with your child a little bit about your experience, and also to be able to inform them that the world and what we know about it is very different than when we were young. And what we know now about how, substances impact your brain is much different than what we knew. The potency of substances is significantly different. The cutting of substances and what you think you're using versus what, you actually may be consuming. All of these things are vastly different. And so in being able to, explain to them that ultimately we're encouraging them to use substances, hopefully 0% until their brain is developed. But we're doing things that will help prevent them from using them the least amount of times, because if they use substances less now, they have a greater chance of having a healthy relationship with substances later on when they're adults. And so I think that's the biggest message.
I think for me, it would just be about like the age of the child, how much I wanted to share my own personal experiences versus what they were asking.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that age appropriate, and again, it is a fine line because the age that our kids are growing up now, it is so different than when we grew up. The advent of social media and the internet and all of these things, what they get exposed to, good, bad, indifferent, is so much more vast than we ever could have possibly had at that age. And it is hard. It is hard to balance those, how much do I want my kids to know about the real world that is going to affect them, and how much do I want them to be able to keep some of that innocence as long as possible?
I want mine to know 100% about the real world, but I don't want them to experience it. you know, until they're older.
Claire, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I loved in this performance was just the reality of it and the groundedness, particularly in the mom and dad's reaction. I mean, you know, David playing the dad in this, he just kind of butchers the conversation, really.
I mean, I felt for him. I really felt for him.
Right. And as parents, like, that's the thing, right? You try to have this conversation and you realize maybe it has fallen totally flat. I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened to you.
You know, it happens all the time, Jodie. You know, you try, that's what parenting is. You know, you try to go in, you're trying to, you get rejected, you try to go back in, you just keep like chiseling away, you know, until hopefully one of these moments, something you say connects.
You know, Amy, I have a question about that. Like, as parents, sometimes your kids, you know, you're in the car or you're in the middle of, you know, Target, and they ask you a question that catches you completely off guard. And you're not prepared for it. And sort of, you know, like David did in this at the table, you stumble through and don't really make sense and try and, you know, deflect. Is there any coming back from that?
I'm ecstatic that we're talking about this because, again, you know, it's very difficult. It's very tricky. I think that it's okay to model to your children that you have to think about it and that maybe you don't have the answer right now, then and there, because either you don't actually know the answer and you need to research it, or because you're not really sure how to talk about it quite yet. And so I think that if there's a tough question that comes up, affirm to your child, you know, that's a really great question. And I want to give you a really great answer. And so can we maybe follow up tomorrow after school, or, you know, and maybe, and set even in your mind, like, when would I be able to follow up about this? And like, what is enough time for me to do what I need to do to feel like I'll be prepared? And on the flip side of that, I think that it's okay as parents, and I encourage parents to give your children time to think about the answers to some of their questions that they may have, or some of the questions you may have for them. Like, you know, wait, like, what do you think? Like, and, you know, or tell me why you're curious about that too. Like, you know, that's still an age old, you know, it works now and it worked then.
Well, none of this is an easy conversation. And I know, you know, there's, you start it and you fail. Sometimes it goes really well. Sometimes your kids listen. Sometimes you think you're going to have a great conversation and your kids just look at you and be like, anyway, you know, I've had that too. I'm like, oh, we're going to have a moment right now. It's gonna be a great moment. And then they just look at you like, yeah, anyway, whatever.
You know, I think the biggest takeaway for parents and caregivers from this first episode is, you know, you are, you know, a role model for your children. Of course, people know that. But what we want to emphasize is that it's more about what you do than it is about what you say to your child. And so I think that it's a really wonderful opportunity for parents and caregivers to reflect on their own behavior and think about the image that we want to project to our children.
So that whole actions speak louder than words sort of thing comes back and is true yet once again.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
Right.
For
and
sure.
we all remember the frustration of parents being like, do what I say, not what I do.
Mm-hmm.
We know that doesn't work. It feels like, but that's not genuine.
It's our chance to do it differently, for sure.
Exactly. Well, great. I hope parents really take that away, and caregivers from this, is that, you know, it's the examples that you said, it's what you do, and that your kids are always watching. Children will listen. They will listen to you even when you don't think that they are. And usually that's when they're listening the most, is when you're, you know, just kind of going about your business and they're watching who you are and how you act.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you guys so much for having this conversation today. Claire, I really appreciate you coming on as a fellow parent to talk about all of this stuff.
Absolutely. It is my pleasure. And there's probably nothing in life I love more than my kids, and like talking about my kids and talking about what I can do for my kids. So really the pleasure is mine.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, is there anything coming up for you right now that you're working on that's super fun that you'd love to tell us about?
I think that my passion project right now is I am doing a podcast that drops every Monday. It's called Fanatics. It's produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, who of course created Star Trek. It's not a Star Trek podcast, but it is a podcast about things that people love. So, for example, Jodie, you may come on and talk about your love of cooking or whatever. We had, yes, Greg Grunberg came on, talked about his love of Ford Broncos. Tony Hale, love him to death. He's so funny. Came on, talked about his love of indoor malls. So it's all about like figuring out what people love that they don't normally get to talk about at press junkets.
And it's called Fanatics?
Fanatics, yes. Every Monday you can catch it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast.
Oh, well, we'll definitely tune in. And I will have to have you as a guest on my podcast, which is called Never Thought I'd Say This, which is a fun, irreverent, inappropriate look at parenting.
Let's do a podcast trade.
So yeah, podcast trade. It's in the books. It's happening.
Done.
Anyway, thank you so much, Claire, for joining us today. I really appreciate having this open and honest conversation with other parents. And Amy, of course, you have been amazing in guiding and leading with all of your knowledge about how to best have these conversations.
I learned so much from you, Amy. Like, I feel like I now need like separate sessions with you. Jodie, can you arrange that?
Yeah, anytime. Please reach out. You guys are the best. It's been wonderful.
Great. Well, thank you so much, ladies. And I hope everyone has really enjoyed episode 1 of Awkward Conversations. And there will be lots more to come. More awkward conversations, more unawkward conversations. And make sure to check out GetSmartAboutDrugs.com. Parents, caregivers, you can find so many resources of great information there about how to talk to your kids and make these conversations a little less awkward.
Love it. Bye, guys.
Bye.